Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
I'm new.
And we are live from the cave. Today, we are going to be talking about Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. Neil, have you ever been in a Lotus before?
No, but I've just watched a middle-aged man unfurl himself from a Lotus.
Normally, with these shows, I try and think about what are we going to talk about at the beginning? What kind of banter are we going to have? And I had this whole spiel about how I hadn't seen a Lotus yet in its native land. And then as we pulled in this morning, there is one. There's one right there in the parking lot. And so I was lucky enough to Neil introduced me to the owner, Dan, and I went down there. Dan back there. Let's give a big hand to Dan.
Yay!
Was lucky enough to go down and experience what it is like to sit in a Lotus.
Well, before you can sit in it, you have to get in it. So
Well,
describe the experience.
Most of the experience was getting into the Lotus. You have about, I don't know, 1.5 feet of clearance between the seat and the top of the roof. So you have to fold yourself in half and carefully ooze yourself into the seat. Yeah. And then once you're in there, you're like, well, I'm in for the duration now. There's no there's no getting out. But it was definitely an experience. Aaron, have you been in a Lotus before?
Are you kidding? They'd have to have an industrial-sized shoehorn to get me into one of those things, man. My Lotus is spelled Loads, load, because I need one huge-size Lotus. I mean, it'd be cool to be in a cool sports car, but, man, I've never been anything remotely resembling a sports car, especially something like a Lotus. I'd love to, but I'd like to be that small.
Were you a car guy growing up, Neil? Did you idolize a particular sports car?
Well, the Lotus was always up there,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that is probably something that raised awareness in the US. I don't know how big Lotus is in the US, but
Not.
of course, James Bond, the submarine Lotus. Do you know what I'm talking about? That one?
I don't think
I
so.
do.
No? Yeah, you do.
Was that Spy Who Loved Me?
Yeah. That's always that's the one that made me fall in love with the Lotus.
And yours definitely doesn't go underwater, right? Not that you know of. Thought you might be able to take me home at the end,
But they're cool
You might
cars.
as well give it a shot. Just drive it through the lake or something. Make sure. What could go wrong?
Yeah, they're cool cars. It's no surprise that they chose it for the subject of a video game.
Yeah. Would you say for the general Brit out there, does that cover Scottish people, Dave? I can't remember. Okay, good. I don't want to offend you. Is that a car that most people grow up really wanting? Is it like in America where they're all about like the Lamborghini or the Ferrari? Is the Lotus that?
They're still a thing. I mean, the thing that always stuck with the Lotus was the handling. Everyone always thought Lotuses just stick to the road. Even if they don't have the power of a Lamborghini or Ferrari, it's all about the handling and throwing it around corners. To the point where you could buy a regular car like a Rover 25, but you could get the one with the Lotus tuned suspension. So you thought, I've got a little bit of Lotus in my Rover. And
That sounds pretty good.
It was called an MGZR, so it was MG branded, but it was just a Rover 25, and bits fell off the door just like a normal Rover. But it went around corners well. That Lotus part of the car was awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about Lotus 2. So, Lotus 2 came out in 1991 on the Amiga. Its publisher was Gremlin Graphics. They are, of course, Sheffield's own. For those of you that don't know, I was a graduate student at the University of Sheffield about 15 years ago, so that makes me happy. They did Monty Mole, The Immortal Jack the Nipper, and somewhat less well known, they did the conversion of the Masters of the Universe, the movie. Game
With the who played He-Man in that movie? The same guy from Rocky, wasn't it?
Yeah. Were you a fan of that film?
No, I was a big fan of the cartoon, and I had Castle Grayskull and everything, but the movie was awful.
Well, it scared me as a child.
Okay.
It was frightening. I didn't.
Everything scared you, Bo.
That's
My
true.
God.
That's true.
You were so timid.
I don't know what happened. Now, you had Gremlin Graphics here in the cave not too long ago.
We
didn't you?
had one of the old programmers, Richard Stevenson, and Mark Hardesty, who is a gaming historian, really wrote the book available in our gift shop over there now on Gremlin Graphics, and gave us a really good insight. Have you watched that talk yet?
I don't really watch your channel, Neil. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. Not many people do. No, really great talk. And,
I mean, are they nice? They're not arrogant like the Bitmap brothers, are they? God, those guys.
I don't think they've got that reputation.
That's good.
No.
The developer, Magnetic Fields. Do you know what their original name was when they were founded? They were founded as Mr. Chip Software in 1982. Does that mean anything to you? Is that a brand?
Matt's nodding over there. Can we have can you remember any games in particular? No, I can't remember any games. Okay, give him the mic so he can just say no. I don't remember.
I've worked with a lot of the Gremlin Graphics guys. They know, but a lot of them are in Sumo in Sheffield, still in Sheffield.
Oh, okay. That's great that they still have a Sheffield base.
Yeah, Sheffield still has a scene going back all the way to the original roots of Gremlin Graphics. And Just Micro was the shop where it started, where all the school kids that were coding came together, shared their ideas, and then out of that grew Gremlin Graphics. And today people like Sumo, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Magnetic Fields is Sean Southern and Andrew Morris, of course, most famous for Lotus, but maybe almost as famous for the Supercars series, which is another, genre-defining racing game on the Amiga. But who can forget the seminal Sonic killer, the console killer, Kid Chaos? Everybody dropped their Mega Drives and bought Amigas when Kid Chaos came out. Another one of the Mount Rushmore of Amiga platforming mascots, really.
If you say so.
Yeah.
Was that the caveman boat? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the teenage caveman.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Have you covered it on your channel before?
We have.
I haven't seen that one.
Not a fantastic game, but better than Zool. So, yeah, there's a ringing endorsement. The musician, probably in the top 5 most famous Amiga soundtracks. Now, I don't know how to say his last name. Barry Leach?
I thought it was Leach myself.
Barry Leach.
Barry Leach. Also known for Supercars 2. And here's one you might not realize. Nightbreed 2, the interactive movie.
Horrible. Horrible.
They can't all be winners. So... Do you remember, Neil, as we escape the development of this game, your first time picking up the old Lotus 2 and shoving it in your system?
Yeah, it was after I picked up Lotus 1.
Mm-hmm. So you played the original before you played the second one.
And there was a big deal about the second one. So I'm a huge Outrun fan, as most people know. So there was always this desire on the home micros to recreate that Outrun experience. Full screen, sprite scaling, big items popping down the side of the road, a really good experience. Lotus 1 didn't quite achieve that because you were trapped in half a screen. You had the game, unless you were playing 2-player, where it was split screen, and that was great. 1 player, you had top half of the screen, bottom half, for some unknown reason, you had 2 guys in a petrol pump putting petrol into a Lotus. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was a good game. And it had something like 32, 33 tracks. There was a lot of game in Lotus 1. But the big thing about Lotus 2 was it's going to be full screen.
Yeah.
And you're going to get closer to that Outrun experience. And it's going to maintain the speed. So that was the first thing I was looking for when I loaded it.
Now, in Lotus 1, I can't remember. Did those guys, was there some sort of pitting mechanism where those guys would swing into action?
I can't remember. It was laps rather than point-to-point racing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
they went back to the same format in the third one for the first one, sort of.
Stephen remembers.
So 2 sort of the anomaly.
What can you remember, Stephen?
Yeah, on the first one, you did laps, but there was a fuel mechanic as well, so you did have to pit at least once during the race. Then how long you stood in the pits depended on how much fuel.
You got.
So
those
you
mechanics,
have to balance it right.
They did spring into life down there.
Stop long enough to get enough fuel to complete the race.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank PCBWay.com for supporting our episode today. They aren't just about PCBs, although they do a tremendous job of that. They also offer CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, 3D printing, and injection molding. If you're creating, then PCBWay.com can help you bring your project to life. Get an instant quote now over at PCBWay.com, and we thank them for their support.
How about you, Aaron? Did you play Lotus 2 after Lotus 1, or did you play the second one first?
I think I did I played the first one first, like Neil. I liked it, but he's right. That having the screen perpetually split in half sucked. You couldn't see anything, man. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. You can see why they did it, since they had the fact you could play 2 people at once on it was cool, and that's why they did it. But ultimately, I prefer the second one just because you can see the whole screen.
Aaron, would you describe the first one as maybe being wacky?
Well, I wouldn't say it's that wacky, Neil. But it's at least goofy. Have the whole screen split the whole time, you know.
So Neil, I know that you have some notes here. What kind of options and things did we find?
I've got
in
options
Lotus
there.
2?
So we've been playing it today. Has everyone had a chance to play Lotus 2 today? So we've actually had it linked up on an Atari ST and an Amiga 600. Oh, there was a cheer for the Atari over there.
A singular cheer, mind you.
With a no modem cable. So not only can you play 2-player head-to-head cross-platform, 2-player per machine. So we had 4-player racing when one of the machines wasn't crashing. There was a lot of crashing going on with the machine,
especially on one of the platforms. I won't say which did the more crashing, but
so yeah, 4-player link up. That's pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, can you think of other games that offered that same capability?
Not over a single no modem cable.
It's pretty impressive.
Getting networks fired up to get more than 2 players. So that's great fun. You've got the option of manual or automatic gears, fire or up to accelerate.
Does anybody choose up to accelerate? No,
fire to accelerate. Although, Paul, you were complaining about a sore finger holding down the fire button.
Yeah, on the ST version, I mean, I'm getting old now, but just holding that fire button down and keeping the vice-like grip, it was uncomfortable. So, yeah, I think maybe...
Much like getting into a Lotus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's 8 distinct circuits in this game, and other things that were new in this game. You have new surface effects, new weather effects. It can rain, it can snow. Later on in the game, you're actually racing with oncoming traffic going against you. So there was a lot on offer other than just new tracks in a full screen view. This was originally... Do you know what the original license was for this game?
What, instead of a Lotus?
Instead of a Lotus.
Austin.
No. What's up? Originally... Yeah, anybody else? No? Good guess, though. Yeah. Yeah, it's originally a Porsche game.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Didn't know that.
So they couldn't get the Porsche license, and so they said, "Well, throw the Lotus in there," and away it went. I wonder if there was any kickback. If the Lotus said, "If you sold so many new cars for us because of all these kids that are buying this game." I don't know. So anyway, like you said earlier, this is, instead of a lap-based racing game, this is a point-to-point endeavor. So you have a limited amount of time to reach each checkpoint. It's very Outrun-esque. And reaching each of these extends your time. So any remaining time you have is just turned into bonus points. This is one of these games that's got this absolute massive row of numbers as your score, because as you motor along, your score continually increases. And so I think there's 8 or 9 digits in your score. You end up with a massive score in this game. You've got 2 cars at your disposal in this game. You got the Lotus Esprit or the Lotus, is it Elan? Elan, right. The convertible is the Elan. It's slower, but it's got better grip. So that's essentially the game.
Yeah, you got 7 or 8 courses in total. I'll go through them: forest, night, fog, snow, desert, motorway, which is the one with the oncoming traffic, and it's also got a truck that goes across the screen, and you've got to time it just right to go under the trailer without getting crushed, and it lets out like a yee-haw sound effect if you manage it. Marsh and Storm, and each course has got a code, so you can jump to it if you've got to it and you've got the code. Marsh, the code is Bagley. Is Jim Bagley involved some way in this game? Does anyone know? You think so? Yeah. Oh, you've got him on your phone. Okay, we'll find out live. The Marsh, it was Jim Bagley involved in Lotus 2. Yeah.
So yeah, here's the thing. Everybody, and this is a really famous Amiga game. Almost everybody has played this that has experience with the platform. There are great things about this game, and there are things that I wish that I could change. There's a couple things that really stand in the way of this game being just an exercise in racing perfection. The first is that as you're going along in this game, the other cars in the game are all identical. And that's unfortunate, because when you're part of the fun of racing as a Lotus is you want to see how much faster you are than all of these other cars. Of course, they're not going to get real world licenses for the rest of the cars, but you can make a pretty good facsimile of these. So that's one thing that I wasn't a huge fan of. What do you think the biggest thing wrong with this game is, Aaron? I mean, it's hard to really critique a game like this.
the biggest thing wrong with it, I don't know. I mean, listen, it's a great game to start off with, but I wish the viewing angle from behind the car was a little bit higher. That's always bugged me. I don't know what it is about these games from this era when it comes to the viewing angle, but it's just too low. You know, it needs to be up more so you can see more of what's coming forward. You know. Also, you know, this is a Lotus, right? You were in this thing, right? And I don't know if Dan's still back there, but I mean, how high can you lift these things when you hit a log? I mean, can you really? Because I mean, I was just listening to Neil name all those courses, snow and swamp. Are you going to take a Lotus in the desert? That seems dumb, right? Or in the swamp? I mean, who would take them into the swamp? I mean, I don't, you know. So yeah, that stuff's kind of weird. But I mean, overall, it's a fun game. It makes you. I mean, once you fall behind on your checkpoints, you could be pretty boned in terms of getting towards trying to get to that next checkpoint. I mean, there's not a real large margin for error, and so it can be sort of frustrating. I mean, thankfully, you've got the level codes. You could try it. I would like to just have the courses just selectable on the main menu, you know, because I'm lazy, as opposed to type in the gimmick. I like the I like the deal with the main menu on this thing's great. It's one of the few times where they got it right with the menu because it doesn't have it's all symbols, but you can tell what's going on. You've got all your options there, and it's all logical. It makes sense. So I like I mean, it's bad we have to put over the menu, but the menu is good to get started. I like that. I agree with what you said about the cars. It's kind of lame that you have to kind of see the same cars over and over. I wish you could pick other cars, you know, just to have some sort of variety. But I mean, with all that said, this is probably, I can't think of a better racer on the Amiga. So I'd say this is probably the high water mark, including the third one, which the third one had some really good concepts in it but I mean, I still think it was sort of a step backwards in a way. So really, of the Lotus series, I'd say this is probably my favorite of the three.
Mm-hmm. Neil, your critical assessment?
Well, we've just had confirmation from Matt over here that Jim Bagley was not involved in any way.
Coincidence.
He knew what we were talking about.
He knew what we were talking about. Okay. Yeah, I agree with Aaron. You've got a Lotus. I just want to race it on tarmac around a city. Mm-hmm. Why am I putting in the snow and the desert and in the marsh? I don't want that. I think there was a lot more courses in Lotus 1. 32 or so, mm-hmm. And you were doing laps. You could learn the course. I enjoyed that aspect of it more.
Well, I think part of being a point-to-point racer is that you want to see a variety of environments, right? You know, in Outrun, you're going through the city, you're going through the ruins, you're going by the beach, and so maybe that's just sort of part and parcel. They wanted to get that same feeling. You know, that Outrun feeling.
But you say that the handling didn't really change.
Right.
And also, although I keep saying Outrun, I'd actually describe playing it as a bit more like Super Hang-On. Because on Super Hang-On, you've got the turbo button and you start to understeer as you go too quickly. And that's very noticeable in Lotus. You've got to come off the throttle, pulls you back into the racing line as if it's some kind of simulation. It's not a simulation.
I was going to say,
it is a nice mechanic.
Speaking of the non-sim parts of this game, were you put off by the bouncing on the logs?
The bouncing on the logs is probably the most frustrating thing. You lose the ability to turn when you hit them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when you combine that with the marsh where there's nothing but water either side of the track, you hit the wrong log, you're just going straight off the track. It's unfair at times. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty brutal game. It finds its balance, but it can be unfair. Yeah. Would you agree, Aaron?
I'd say, I would. I would say that's pretty much the way I feel. I mean, and you're right. Having this, you know, I grew up playing like pole position and stuff. Pole position 2, especially where you've got a bunch of different tracks. Like, to me, a Lotus would be more well-served to be on a series of actual or simulated real-world tracks. This is more of like something you'd drive like a dune buggy or something on some of these courses, not a Lotus. You know, but that's just being sort of picky, I guess. I mean, as long as it's fun, and it is. So that's the major thing. But it would have been more courses. I would like to have even had a few lapped courses in there. It would have been nice, you know, maybe just something. I mean, I love Outrun. Don't get me wrong. I wish we had a good one, you know, but this is as close as we got, I'd say.
You got to remember, Outrun had two 68,000 CPUs in there. It was a beast compared to what you're trying to push on the Amiga 500. So
Still no excuse of the Outrun port on the Amiga, though.
No, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, the PC Engine's got a good port. A lot of places got good ports that have crappier processors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think we need to get some audience feedback on their thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Ian, you are a roving reporter. What's your question, John?
How much did it bother you back in the day? Because this is a point of contention for me, who grew up playing console games where there was always background music on the games. How much did it bother you back in the day that you had one of the best pieces of music you ever heard in your life on the stage select screen, and then as soon as the game starts up, it goes away forever?
Chris Foltz.
It's a good point, Boat.
Strangely, didn't bother me at all because no Amiga game had in-game music, so you didn't notice it was missing. I think if all the games had music in, you would have gone, oh, that's odd. But it wasn't until I really got into the Super Nintendo and the eventual sequel to this, Top Gear, the Top Gear games, that I realized how much was missing. But at the time, it was great.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
And
one of the advantages of Lionheart, Boat. That was a great game with in-game music.
Lionheart, eh? Yeah.
That's right.
We should mention that the Chukar sample. Chukar. Can we all do that? Chukar. There it is. That was from Oh Yeah by Yellow, also featured on Ferris Bueller's Day Off, of course. Anyway, same question, or do you have another question for the...
maybe just if you have any memories of playing Lotus 2, or if you have your own thoughts about whether this is a good game or not, or why you love it, we want to hear from you.
Dave, why don't you give us your assessment of Lotus 2 on the Atari ST, as we've had that on today?
I do have a question for Aaron first, though. Are you feeling froggy?
I feel real froggy, Dave.
On the ST, obviously, is better. No, it's not. It's not. It's not as good on the ST. It's actually a good game on the ST, though. It's fine. It's only when you see it running next to an Amiga do you realise it's not quite as good as the Amiga version. And this game was made for the Amiga. So it was made for the Amiga, and then they tried to do the best on the ST. Not quite as good. On the subject, though, on sound effects or music, it only bothered me when you had an option on the title screen to switch between SFX or music. The Killing Game shows one of my favourite games, and you have to choose between that amazing music or the sound effects, and you feel as if you're missing out because you've got to choose which one not to have.
Mm-hmm.
Dave.
It's the first time I've seen Dave Velociraptor below the neck. Looking good, Dave.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Lotus 2 thoughts they'd like to share?
Good or bad?
I'm literally holding the mic, so I suppose I should
go ahead, Pix.
I've always really enjoyed Lotus. It's a simple but accomplished racing game that you can just pick up and play at any time. And you do get that feel that if you are getting the corners right and you're getting around all the cars, that you are getting better and you're winning and you're having a really good race. We did speak to Sean Southern and Andrew Morris for the magazine recently.
What magazine's that?
That would be Amiga Addict magazine.
Amiga Addict magazine?
Yes.
Where is that available?
Available at all good publishers and shops and online, yeah.
Not local small news agents.
Not local small news agents. It's every 6 weeks. Thank you very much, Dave. It is extremely reasonable price, yes. Yes. Apparently Sean and Andrew went along to a computer show, and they were running a challenge on stage. The MC, who was some popular presenter, had no idea who they were, and they went up and beat all the scores, and the presenter was completely shocked until he found out who they actually were, at which point he was not at all pleased with them. So that's a reflection on the fairness of Lotus, I guess. But no, I think it's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic series, to be honest. So.
It really is. Observations on the Amiga running next to the ST. This is not to have a dig at the ST, because there is a noticeable difference in the way they're running.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw the ST running single player, and it ran a lot better, actually, than when we did the link up with 2 players on each platform.
So the Amiga was holding the ST back.
Something like that. Something like that.
That's what we can assess.
Yeah, the frame rate on the ST side by side was just it just wasn't there, and the ST doesn't have the sort of road textures and the lines on the road or anything like that either. So, but yeah. Clear difference.
The game, unsurprisingly, reviewed very well in the magazines of the time. Amiga Power gave the game an 87 and said that it is a superbly playable racing game that will appeal to anyone who likes driving fast cars around scenic courses. CU Amiga gave the game a 93. They said it's fast, furious, and fun. And the 1 for Amiga games. Was there a 1 for other platforms? Is that why they said that?
The one,
Yeah, ST, right? Didn't they have one?
The 1 for ST was a thing? Okay. They gave the game a 91 and said it's a stunning example of how to make a racing game that's both realistic and enjoyable. I question the former claim. This game has an interesting Easter egg, as well as having a copy-proof, quote-unquote, a disc, and a code lookup manual. The game features a third method of protection, and it somewhat borders on the subliminal. If you listen very carefully on the manual request screen on the Amiga version, you'll hear a faint whisper saying, "Do not copy this game." The word's still out on whether that was successful or not. There's also a secret Easter egg mini game in this game. If you type in the password ducks, DUX, I believe, there is a shooting gallery game where you're shooting ducks. It's a very simple. It looks like something that you might see on the Atari 2600 or something. So.
Yeah, I think it's an old game Sean Southern wrote on the VIC-20.
Oh, right.
So he's hidden it in there. I couldn't find a way of getting out of it. Once you're in there, you've just got to reset the whole computer to get back to Lotus. But, it kills 5 minutes. It's a fun little Easter egg.
Yeah. I thought I'd give everybody a little history of Lotus, the car maker. Knowing that we have somebody who knows what they're talking about here makes me a little nervous. But the Lotus Esprit was a car built by Lotus. And does anybody besides Dan know where the factory was for Lotus cars?
Birmingham? No.
Hethel.
Where's that?
Hethel. Don't know. Not a clue. They were built there from 76 all the way up until 2004. So relatively recently. And the Lotus Elan was produced between 62 and 75, and then they brought it back between 89 and 95. It's interesting. It was originally a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and then in 89 through 95, it was front-wheel drive. There are still Lotus cars being made. However, they are gearing up, like much everybody else is, for the new launch of their electric SUV. That's, I guess, they claim that in the first half of 2023 they produced a record number of sports cars, but they don't say what that number is. So,
did you say SUV, Bo?
Oh yeah.
There's going to be a Lotus SUV.
It's probably just a shared platform that all the manufacturers are using, and they've slapped Lotus on that. I guess
it's called the Electra. And it's the first Lotus built in China, so I'm sure that fills you with thrilling emotions. Lotus Cars is currently owned by Geely Holding, a holding company, and they are also the same company that owns Volvo. Yeah, same Chinese conglomerate. Most Lotus cars continue to be produced in England, and their 2023 model list includes more cars that start with E. The Avia, I think, and the Amira. Anyway, what do you expect to pay for, like, say, a Lotus Elise? You want to throw a number out there for me?
They're not super expensive in sports cars terms. I don't know, $30,000?
Not even close.
Oh,
not even close.
70,000 pounds.
I have dollars here, so you'll have to do your conversion in your head.
That's too hard.
But you can get a Lotus Elise. They start at $97,000.
Really? That much?
$97,000.
US dollars?
US dollars, so 80,000 pounds.
80.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than I thought.
Not a cheap vehicle. So there's and I guess Lotus, they shipped 576 cars last year. So a record number, but not really a large number.
No.
Yeah.
How do they stay in business shipping that few cars?
Well, I think
licensing Amiga games.
When each car is $100,000, you don't have to sell a lot to turn a profit.
I suppose not.
So anyway, if you wanted to buy a car that was similar to the one that raced in this game, I looked up on carsandbids.com one that is just sold in the United States.
You do your research,
I
John.
do. Listen, I'm a professional. Look at me. This is a 1990 Esprit Turbo SE. Anybody want to take a guess what it sold for? Lots of good numbers.
Higher or lower than 30?
Dan, you want to throw a number in there? Where'd you go, Dan? He's gone. He was offended we were talking about his car.
It's got to be over $200,000.
$28,000.
So wow, I was way off.
Not the sort of car that might keep its value as much as you might think. Yeah. So, but who's to know what kind of maintenance costs you might incur when you buy a car like this? Something tells me there's not a lot of garages that keep parts for this thing in stock. So yeah, a little bit of a Lotus-ness there. Before we hang things up, though, we do have a tradition where we read our Discord community's reviews. We got a couple reviews from folks. So the first one comes from David Hearn Ryder in Australia. He says, many moons ago, I fired up Lotus 2's single disc on my stock A500. I remember the moment vividly. The incredible music on the title screen that sounded so crisp, fresh, and downright catchy. Next, I'm greeted by a plethora of options. Onward to a slick track splash screen. And next, bam! I'm racing through the forest, the snow, the desert. I was hooked. If you want to go back in time to the moment when Outrun got buried by an Amiga game, fire it up. 8.5 out of 10. And then we have a review from Lobsterminator over in Finland. And he says, the 3 Lotus games tend to blur in my memory into different sides of the 4-dimensional hypercoin. I loved them back in the day, and they still hold up. A smooth frame rate was unfortunately a rarity on the Amiga, and when games did run smoothly, they really stood out. A true deserved classic, 9 out of 10. So,
what's a hypercoin?
Listen, you're going to have to talk to Lobsterminator about that. I don't know.
Man, yeah, that's a way above me.
Sounds like we should invest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's talk about this week's Amiga news.
You didn't prime me. Hang on.
That was the primer.
Here we go.
Amiga news.
All right. Not a whole lot of news this week.
That's great. Thanks.
We've got a new game called Robot Jet Action 2 that it was originally came out for the C64 and is making its way to the Amiga. This is a it's a vertically scrolling platformer game. I tell you, with all of these new Amiga games, and I'll open this up to the audience if you want to talk about it. What type of game interests you the most? Because it seems like these platforming games, they're relatively easy to create. You don't see a lot of, say, new train sim games coming out for the Amiga. Is there a game that you would like to see, a sort of a newly produced game for the Amiga in a particular genre? All right, let's get the mic to Matt.
I like to see more 3D tech done with the Blitter on the Amiga, and perhaps another Elite style space trading game.
Love
that.
That would be fantastic.
Why 3D? Because you want to see the Amiga push to the limit, or
yes,
okay,
yes. I like pushing the old retro machines and seeing what they do. And I personally have written 3D routines on the Amiga using the Blitter, and it's always interested me.
There's a old Amiga game. Is it No Second Prize, which is like
motorcycle,
silky
right?
Smooth 3D racing game. That's that's the one to beat, surely. In that
is that the one you use the mouse to drive?
Yeah,
That's
the mouse. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we played that a while back.
Oh, Frontier is amazing. Yeah, I think Paul had his hand up. Yeah,
Paul.
Yeah, was it the more point-and-click adventures? I loved playing them back in the day. We played that semi-adventure the other week, the Cyberpunk one. So more of that sort of stuff, because it really does that well.
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to play that. What was that called?
Neo Noir.
Yeah, it's like an episodic, quite a short game, but it sounded incredible. So I need to try that out.
Completable in 30 minutes. It's a great little bite-size piece of fun.
I think that's something we can all enjoy at this stage of our lives. Bite-sized gaming. More of that, please.
Yeah. Chris.
Sorry. I'd like to see, there's a lot of really good Specky and C64 games that never got a sequel. Now, some people are remaking it on the PC, but I feel that it's just too many generations apart. So I'd like to see, Back to School 2 or something, bring some of those back to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Just bring back some of the 8-bit games, but on a 16-bit, where they never got their sequels.
Because there was a period where if a 16-bit game felt a bit like an 8-bit game, it could only really be a budget title. It felt a bit sort of
Black Lamp, perfect example.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
In the modern day, that's not really an issue. Make it feel retro. Make it feel 8-bitty on an Amiga. That's fine. Enjoy that.
Holly.
Yeah, I'd like to see what Jeff Minter can do in a new game on the Amiga.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
What do you think would be in that game, Holly?
Ooh.
Maybe llamas.
What's the furry creature?
There's some camels.
And our second story, going off of what Chris was saying.
Just got one more comment here
Oh,
from Dave.
sorry, Dave. I didn't see you.
Ultima 5.5.
Ultimate
geez.
That's it. Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry about Dave.
First of all, I have a question because I'm in the right audience for this. I've always wondered where the name Crimbo came from.
Crimbo? I don't know the origins. It's just a shortening.
Because it doesn't really shorten Christmas, though. It's the same number of syllables.
Crimbo, Christmas, Xmas. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Nobody knows.
I think you're attributing too much logic to English, to be honest.
That's true. That's true. Well, there was a game called Crimbo that came out on the ZX Spectrum that is getting an AGA port. Okay. And it's by an outfit called Little Shop of Pixels. And so this is a
platformer?
It is. It's very much in the style of Bubble Bobble or Rainbow Islands. So be on the lookout for that. It's always exciting to see Spectrum ports, like you said, because you take an already proven format and then you make it look a little prettier. Maybe you expand a couple of the mechanics and then boom, you've got a great game. Just don't give us any more Doom clones. I'm tired of the Doom. Yeah.
Doom is too easy to do on the Amiga anyway.
It runs so well. But that's going to do it for this week's Amiga News. So we reached the end of the show, in which it just kind of dies, and we just hit the stop. Now, what are we gonna play next week, Aaron, on Amigos?
Are you kidding? I don't know.
I know.
I have no idea.
If you want to tune in next Friday on twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming, we are going to be playing, or we're going to be reviewing Blood Money, the classic title.
Oh yeah.
So it's got one of the best intros, bar none, of any Amiga game. So feel free to check that out. You can find Aaron and I's wacky adventures on the Amigos Retro Gaming YouTube channel. Find us on your podcatcher of choice or on Twitch. We're easily reachable. We also have shows about all kinds of different computers. We've got a show about the ZX Spectrum called Our Sinclair. We've got a show about the Atari ST, creatively titled The Atari ST Show. And a show about the Tandy Color computer, which I know you guys had the Dragon here, which was about the same thing. It's called The Coco Show. All of those shows are hosted by Aaron and his lovely brother, Brent. So you can check those out.
I wouldn't call him that.
Well.
Lovely. I spent 8 hours with that lovely fellow the other day, and I definitely wouldn't term him as lovely.
We did a Thanks for Giving marathon on Friday. It's always the day after Thanksgiving. Aaron and Brent do 8 hours straight of retro gaming in the studio. And Aaron's he's got a building in the back of his house that has pinball machines and arcade machines and a podcast studio. Like I said, we got a lot of room in the United States. Everybody's got one of these things. And so that is the show for this week. Thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah, and thank you, John, for making the effort to come all the way over from the States to be with us, and to everyone for joining in with us today. And it's not just the show that they've been joining you with this week. Tell us where you've been this week.
So, I don't know what I'm being asked right now.
The Model Village.
Oh,
the Model Village.
Yeah. So, of course, the Model Village was the highlight. We went to the Cotswolds yesterday, and for £4.50, a pittance, you can walk around a model village that seemed to have been last updated in the late 1950s. It was like a model village after an apocalyptic event. All of the plastic figurines had faded beyond recognition. It was quite the experience. But I will say that without a doubt, the highlight of this entire trip was Neil made a special effort to create a whole room for me, basically. Downstairs on the next floor down from the cave, he put a Subbuteo mat, otherwise known as Subutu for those of you in the United States. Yeah. We got and then on the TV there, Indoor League, which I like to call the Yorkshire Pub League. It's an old show from the 70s. If you're not familiar with it, it's amazing. It's all these bar games that they do. What was the name of the TV network that was on?
Oh, was it Yorkshire? No.
Something.
Was it Granada? Yorkshire
right,
TV,
right.
Yeah.
So it's proper old school 70s British competition. Yeah. So check that out if you haven't. It's really this is really more of a commercial.
Did you play any of those games at the bar? Did you get to play any of those games, Tavern Boat? When
we
you were
tried super hard to find bar billiards. We went to a place that at one point had it, but was not. It was not there anymore.
It was 40 years ago.
Exactly.
No one had one of those gimmicks at the table with the swinging deal.
The
and
swinging
the
deal. Yeah, we found a place that had the swinging deal, but unfortunately, lots of people were sitting around, so you couldn't just take it off the wall and give it a spin without causing injury. So it was a slight disappointment, but I'm confident. Oh, and by the way, I guess I should announce this now. If you're going to be in Nottingham in July. Ravi Abbott, you might know him of the Retro Hour fame, hosts an annual Amiga event called Kickstart, and I'm going to be hosting Kickstart in July. So, thank you. So I will be back to the UK in just a couple months, and Ravi assures me that there's a pub called Ye Old Trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham that may have some of the games that I so long to play. So, yeah.
How'd you do at Subbuteo?
Oh. Listen, you're going to see pictures that are going to blow you away.
You were there, Aaron.
Yeah.
You were there. You'll see the pictures.
Your trip to the miniature village explains some very curious photos you posted where it looked like you were Godzilla stomping through the backwoods. I was like, what in God's name is this?
I dare say you may be coming for a drink with us tonight as well.
Oh, no. Oh,
geez. All right, guys. Thanks as always for watching. We will see you next time. And until then...
Adios.
Adios.